Hey Tim, I'm having some issues, so I'll be right back. Hold on. Son of a bitch. If we didn't have tech issues, we wouldn't have as much fun, right? Yeah, Stan, what's up? Uh, Let me see something real quick. Hang on just a second, guys. Sorry. Hey guys. Hey. How's that? Still says poor connection. Oh shit. I need better internet. Spectrum sucks. Um, it is 2:05, ladies and gentlemen. It is the pre-party. I couldn't do that earlier today. I'm a little under the weather. My voice is kind of coming and going. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to our new subscribers. That's Micah Delhauer, Kenneth Amdel Arneson, Aaron Gibson, the Guardian of Chaos Network, Brian Cervantes, and ABC Stardust. Guys, when you subscribe, it means a lot to me. Plus, it gets us closer to getting to that 1,000 member marker. So, if you can, if you enjoy this show, make sure you hit subscribe and like and get those notifications when we go live. And you share it with your friends if they're interested in the national wrestling. I do have a neck, guys. It's underneath his beard. All right, so big news today. I don't think any of us were expecting it. The championship, well, the NWA Power program to the Into the Fire pay-per-view that a lot of the time for planning and all that stuff is getting the TV show. Now, granted, I completely understand that they were supposed to shoot 9 weeks worth of television, but there was always going to be a bridge. There was always going to be a gap in the TV production. There was always going to be that soft week because if you recorded 9 weeks of television and you've got 10 weeks to fill, obviously they're going to have to be creative. And it seems like maybe somebody wasn't planning well enough because, they had a soft week last week on Thanksgiving. And this week, outside of the championship, the World Tag Team Championship match and the fallout from Wrestlecade, it doesn't seem like a very strong show either. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out today. Are you guys even hearing me? This is crazy, man. You know what? I'm going to record the audio. That's not a bad idea. Stan, there won't be a next week. That's the thing, man. There just isn't going to be a next week. In case this doesn't work. No, that ain't going to work. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to figure this out because I know the audio isn't working. And I really don't want to lose everything here. There we go. Voice recorder. Okay, I'll just do that. Haha. Ron says the audio is fine. Lamb, you say you can hear me. Is the quality okay? Are we losing a lot of... Are you guys buffering a lot? Am I buffering? Sorry, guys. I'm not an expert at this, and I'm actually looking into getting something a little bit better to do these live streams with. I'm going to make a little bit of an investment because I'm having so much fun doing these things. And I hope it pays out. We'll see. But I keep seeing this poor connection sign up here, so I'm worried that you guys aren't seeing it. But everyone says it's good, so that's beautiful. Great, perfect. Let me just fix the hat. Fix the beard. All right. Okay, guys. So as I was saying, we always knew there was going to be a soft week in the production leading up to the pay-per-view. But now it looks like they're not only are they just taking next week off, but this is kind of a soft episode too. If you guys had read the spoilers or anything like that, there was also a three-way match that was supposed to determine the number one contender for the world title. That match got scrapped. So, I mean, I don't know why you'd scrap that match. That was quality content, unless they felt like the result of the match looked bad or it painted one of the competitors in a poor light. I don't really know, but to me that just seems like why would you throw that away? So I'll take a second here and I want to read what you guys are talking about. Everyone says the audio's fine and that the video's fine. Okay, so cool. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to throw those out there. I'll do the best that I can to answer them. This is an NWA themed pre-party show, so we're talking all things National Wrestling Alliance. I've been a fan of the NWA since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, if you guys saw my knee. And I've been following the NWA so close since 2000, when they started partnering with UPW, and that's a Southern California wrestling promotion that used to be affiliated with the WWE. That was kind of where Samoa Joe, Frankie Kazarian, John Cena, and a couple other guys got their big starts in professional wrestling. They also had a working agreement with 01 and Shinya Hashimoto. If you guys don't know who Hashimoto is, well, got to go look that up. Hashimoto was the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, brought the title to California, didn't defend it, but brought the title out here, and that had been the first time I'd seen the title up close ever. And then years later, we'd have, through the TNA arrangement, we'd have AJ Styles wear the 10 pounds of gold out here when he was wrestling for either AWS or Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. So I've been following the NWA since then. We've been doing this website since 2006. The original name of the website was NWA Wrestling Fan Site, and that was way too long, so we switched it to alliance-wrestling.com, which this is a presentation of, and you can follow us on social media at TheAllianceBlog. And in case you didn't know, I'm JCal, and we are talking NWA. And one thing I do want to point out is tonight's episode will feature a tag team match. Now, we're celebrating the Rock and Roll Express. Excuse me. Should have set the phone to silent. Now, we are celebrating the Rock and Roll Express today. The Rock and Roll Express have actually legitimately have won a NWA World Tag Team title every decade in their existence except for one. You guessed it. This decade, right here, right now. They initially won the tag titles back in 1985 by defeating the Russians, Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev. They ended up losing the titles to them, but also regaining them. Then they lost the titles to the Midnight Express before regaining them. They were awarded the titles sometime after Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude won them. And then that was the 80s, 85, 86, 87. And 1995, with the Dallas version of the NWA, they defeated Dick Murdoch and Randy Rose to win the NWA World Tag Team titles. Now, that's 1995. Flash forward to the invasion of the WWF by Jim Cornette and his NWA wrestlers. We had a Rock and Roll Express be introduced as the NWA World Tag Team Champions and defended titles against tag teams like the Legion of Doom, the Headbangers, and eventually losing the titles, I think, to the New Midnight Express, Bombastic Bart and Bodacious Billy. Yes. Bombastic Bart and Bodacious Billy. I'm sure Cornette was proud of those days. Then fast forward to the year 2000. Believe it or not, I know a lot of you guys think, oh, the NWA is great, Billy Corgan brought the NWA back from the dead, but the NWA's been around this entire time. It's like a cockroach. It won't die. You can't kill it. It was here before most of us, and it'll be here after all of us. Guaranteed. And I don't really guarantee that, but there was a promotion who was living off the glory years of the Jim Crockett promotions, calling themselves the NWA Mid-Atlantic. They were the Mid-Atlantic territory based out of North Carolina. At the time, they had to deal with a sweet deal to run these international shows on U.S.-based military bases. So they'd bring the NWA to these military bases, and they would use the best talent they could. Now, looking over some of the results, you'd see guys' names like Buff Bagwell. All right, Ricky Nelson, who actually was one of the guys running the show, but he was connected to the Jim Crockett Promotions era of the NWA. And then this is where it gets fun. You had guys like the Bushwhackers. You'd have guys like Rick Steiner show up. Hell, they even had Jeff Jarrett versus AJ Styles in 2005 in Seoul, Korea. But before that, back in 2000, they had the Rock and Roll Express as the NWA Tag Team Champions. I'm not exactly sure how they won them. I'm not exactly sure how they lost them because, again, in 2000, internet wrestling wasn't a big thing and people weren't really keeping track of these, especially shows that were being held on military bases. You can't really find a whole lot of results. You can't find a whole lot of proof. But these matches, this is history that I've researched, that I've followed, that I went back in time and looked at these things. So, yeah, it's crazy. And, even just a few years ago, Ricky Morton won the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship by defeating Chase Owens, his protege. And it's the same Chase Owens of the Bullet Club. The Bullet Club. So it's crazy to think about the longevity of the Rock and Roll Express. And again, if they win these titles tonight, that'll mark 40 years of the Rock and Roll Express winning championship titles. Not exactly 40 years, but 4 decades. That's amazing. That's incredible. And, we've been here to witness it, so that's pretty cool. Let's see what some of your comments are. They should map out how many matches they need for each show and tape accordingly. That's what Stan says. Absolutely, and I think that I've never ran a TV show before. I've never written a TV show before. I've never worked in production for a TV show. But it seems like to me that, we got all this action up front, which was cool because I think that's what you needed to land people in. But as each week went by, the action, there was less and less. Why not give us a few more squash matches? Hell, they were at the Modus Brewery. Why didn't they tape that for distribution? It seems like that would have been an easy thing to do. Even if it was just the world title match, or even if it was just the women's title match, having that ability to take those shows and stretch out what they already taped. This experiment with Wrestlecade. Now, Wrestlecade is not affiliated with the NWA. They just showcased a couple of the NWA wrestlers on their shows. The Dawsons took on Crime Time, but that's not an NWA match. One of the big matches of the night was the Rock and Roll Express teaming up with Nick Aldis to take on Homicide and Hernandez, LAX, and Thomas Latimer. So that's kind of a crazy deal in and of itself. And of course, this isn't an NWA program, but a match like that, like, hey, they could have worked something out. Hey, can we showcase this match on our show? We'll give you free sponsorship, or we'll promote your convention on our shows. It just seems like there was a lot of misses. The last 3 weeks have been really difficult as a fan to watch because after the episode 7, the Cornette fiasco, other than what Cornette said, the show was fine. There was nothing wrong with that show. That was a great show. Murdoch and Aldis was a great match. And I think that really opened up a lot of eyes to people, for the fans who were unfamiliar with Murdoch or didn't think he could still go, just looked at him as an older WWE guy. No, the guy still has it, and I think the NWA knows this, and they're going to start experimenting, and we'll see what Murdoch has left in the tank. But, last week's show, I'll be honest, guys, I was disappointed. I was terribly disappointed. We got a... We got a behind-the-scenes look at Thunder Rosa's MMA fight. Okay, that was cool, but I think that should have been something standalone that shouldn't have been on that show, because again, you're blending lines between characters, Cobra, not Cobra Moon, but Thunder Rosa and Mel Cervantes, the MMA fighter and the pro wrestler, and they're pushing her as a heel, but she's such a baby face in real life, and it's like, okay, you're confusing the fan base a little bit. And I know that Dave Lagana has said many times that there's a lot of gray areas in this NWA, but I think that the show would benefit for more, black and white. You guys have been leaving some comments, so let's see. Oh yeah, Lamb, you're the best, man. You're pimping me out, and I love it. Follow me on the Alliance. Follow me at TheAllianceBlog on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and a Tumblr. I think we have a Tumblr still. Showing outside NWA matches on Power will show the Alliance part of the company. Yeah, and Stan, I mean, that's the thing. It's not really an alliance anymore, but there is. I mean, they're working with, earlier in the year, they were working with Tried and True Pro Wrestling. A lot of their guys are working in Ohio Valley, and I say their guys, but I mean just guys who've kind of been associated with the NWA in the past. And let's not forget Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. They featured the six-man tag recently with, I think it was Ricky Starks, Pretty Peter Avalon, and the Librarian, and James Storm versus Nick Aldis and the Soul Burners, who would be a perfect fit for the NWA. Why not show that match? Why not put that match out there? I mean, I guess it's a little bit confusing because Ricky Starks was kind of used as a heel in that role, but so far in NWA Power, he's a face. But regardless, it gives you extra content. It could have stretched out the show a little bit. I don't know. I don't think that's a necessarily a bad thing. Let's see. Ron says, I think what Lagana did was book a certain number of matches and then see what the fans gravitated to, so they might add more promos matches to tell the story. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I think that's smart booking. But you can only spread peanut butter so thin. Once it gets so thin, that you could, I guess that's a bad euphemism. You can only water down the salad dressing so much, right? And then it's just water. And I think that's the problem. The show, I love the NWA Power. And I do have my, gripes with the show. But for the most part, it's very entertaining to me. And I think most of you guys who are watching this right now agree. It's entertaining. But what happened the last few days, few episodes, I think kind of, it hurts the show. And they have this momentum. So all this momentum leading up to NWA's Into the Fire pay-per-view, and it's starting to dwindle out. Now, if that pay-per-view happened 2 weeks ago, you had all this positive momentum. I have friends, I have people that I do podcasts with who are now out of the NWA because of the Cornette situation. I personally think it's silly, but, that's their opinion. So they're out. They hadn't ordered the pay-per-view. They asked for refunds. They're out. And I feel like, what is there to go off of? We're rehashing some of the older stuff, and I think that in the long run, I don't think that's beneficial for the NWA. Lamb says, would make sense when the NWA Power are taped every month for 4 weeks, like our, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And if you guys aren't doing it, Lamb, this is a shout out for you. Follow Championship Wrestling from CWFH News on Instagram and on Twitter. Lamb does such an amazing job covering not only what's happening in the NWA, but Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Arizona, and I'm sure he'll be covering Silver State Wrestling when that starts. Those promotions, if you guys aren't familiar with, are Dave Marquez promotions. Dave Marquez is very much affiliated with the NWA, and NWA talent has been appearing on his shows, his programming, since the kickoff of 10 Pounds of Gold, so you guys should definitely do that. Pickle says that they really enjoyed all of the episodes, and they like that they're willing to change it up. That's awesome, Pickle. That's cool. They only had 4 hours each day. They did a great job. Yeah, and don't take my criticism as trashing the promotion, because I feel that this NWA is more leveraged for success than any other version of the NWA before. And we're talking about an NWA that had a relationship with Impact Wrestling, that had its title featured on its weekly pay-per-views. We're talking about an NWA that had ties to the New Japan Pro Wrestling, that literally had its world champion defending at Wrestle Kingdom, wrestling against some of the bigger stars of New Japan. This version of the NWA has the most juice, I'm telling you. And I know a lot of people kind of get discouraged because they're saying, well, this is happening and this is happening, but these are all minor things, guys. And honestly, the show's just getting better each and every week, and I really think that they're going to have something special. Ron says the last couple of shows were bad. I think the only bad episode really was episode 8. I just think it didn't have it for me. I think that should have been a pre-show for the pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like that's what should have happened on episode 10, or literally they played that before going live on Fight TV on the 14th. It didn't have I don't mind an empty arena match. It just didn't play out the way that I think anybody would have expected. And then I don't mind silly. Question mark is fine for me. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't have a problem with the Dawsons reciting Shakespeare. I just think it was a miss. The episode was a miss. Again, the Thunder Rosa documentary, I think that should have been done elsewhere. I think if they would have done the three-way match for the number one contendership for the World's Heavyweight Championship, you would have gave the match a little bit more gravitas. You would have added a little bit more oomph leading up to the pay-per-view. And most importantly, you'd have given James Storm that rub that he kind of needs, because I'll be honest, his performances in Atlanta have been a little bit lackluster. I mean, he's named the number one contender, but why? Without that match, he hasn't beaten anybody. He's lost twice on TV. His tag team, his teaming with Latimer and Isaacs, they lost to Cabana, Aldis, and Anderson. Then he lost the title to Cabana. That's 2 losses. So where's his momentum? Why does he get that title match? If anything, the guys who have the winning streak should be getting that title match. Someone like Ricky Starks, someone like the Question Mark. They have a better win-loss record than James Storm. Why does James Storm get the title match? Because Camille whispered in his ear? It just doesn't make sense. They kind of killed that momentum by excluding that match, and I think that was a big oversight. They might swapped 8 and 9 last minute. Yeah, Pickle. They probably did, and there's nothing. It's all trial and error, right? Again, this has never been done like this before. This whole YouTube idea, the broadcasting the show, the taping of 9 weeks in 2 days. I mean, that's not a totally foreign concept, but the guys who are doing this is different, and they're trying to be different, and that's cool. And we'll see how it works out. We'll see how it plays out. But ultimately, I hope it doesn't hurt their momentum for the pay-per-view. Now, I'm still going to order it, and that's a great question. I want to ask everyone here. Leave a comment. Leave a comment. Not in the chat, but leave a comment. Are you going to order the pay-per-view? Because I'd like to know personally. Is the show done enough for you to spend $19.99 if you order before December 7th, or after December 7th? Price goes up to $24.99. Have they done enough to secure your $20? For me, yes. It's a done deal. I'm going to order the pay-per-view. Maybe I'll even do a pre-show before if it's possible. But I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Let me read some of your comments. Lamb, absolutely, buddy. You and me, man. We're good. I appreciate all the love you give me, and I'll try to do as much as I can right back at you. They did a great job with the Dawsons until they lost steam. Yeah, the thing about the Dawsons were they were the unknown, right? The wild cards, the Dawsons and the wild cards, the difference is the wild card went further at the Crockett Cup. The Dawsons were there. They just didn't get past the first round. They didn't get past that Battle Royal. There's still a lot that can be done with the Dawsons, and I don't think them losing to Homicide, them losing to the wild cards, Homicide and Kingston, excuse me, it doesn't stop it. Their momentum is still fine. James Storm nearly won the title at New Year's Clash. Yes, absolutely. But he didn't. And then when you look at his NWA track record, if we're only looking at the NWA, let's put it, if you're only looking at NWA Power, nothing, right? And then if you want to include the Ring of Honor relationship with the NWA, okay, he did beat Colt Cabana to win the title, but remember, he went to a no contest with a healthy Colt Cabana and then ended up defeating an injured Colt Cabana to win the title. He had one defense of the national title outside of the NWA and outside of the Ring of Honor relationship, and it was a promotion in Atlanta, but it wasn't, again, the tree falls in the woods and doesn't make a sound if no one's there to hear it. Let's see. He should have gotten the title shot when he was national champion. It's a ticket. Yeah, Stan, okay, you're 100% right. 100%. He should have got the match then, but he didn't. And it's to me, it's like, well, you snooze, you lose, right? Let's see. Pickle says, ordered the pay-per-view. All right. There was a dodgy finish. Yeah. One thing I did want to talk about is this announcement that's going to happen tonight on NWA Power. If you read what the lineup is for NWA Power, it says the answer to the question of who will be joining the NWA broadcast team at Into the Fire. Please watch the conclusion of this broadcast airing at 6:05 p.m. Eastern tonight. So good on them to try to bump the ratings. Good on them to try to bump those numbers up. Anyone have any guesses on who it's going to be? My guess is it's Raven. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned it on this show, but I did mention it on the podcast. Raven is a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, and now he's more closely affiliated with the ECW or his time as World Champion with Impact Wrestling, but nevertheless, he is a former World's Heavyweight Champion, held that 10 pounds of gold, and his insight into the world of wrestling is pretty vast. I mean, he used to get a lot of credit for the success of ECW because not only did he wrestle, but he was part of the booking committee, part of the storyline development. And I wouldn't suggest he take over for creative in any stretch for the NWA, but certainly for the mind for the business could help add to some of what they're doing for NWA Power. Again, he everyone remembers what he did in ECW, but you forget what he did in pro wrestling Pacific Northwest, wrestling for Don Owens, excuse me, and the time he spent feuding with Roddy Piper and Scotty Polo and former WCW light heavyweight champion and all that stuff. Everyone just seems to remember his time in ECW, but his career was actually very vast. And he had a lot of success at a very early age. Hell, he even did play-by-play for a while, color commentary for a while for the WWE. I think it was Superstars, as that whole Scotty Polo gimmick. Maybe it was Johnny Polo. And then, shifting gears here a little bit, the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, Nick Aldis. Now, I've been one of the biggest proponents for Nick Aldis since he won the title. And Nick Aldis has been very kind to the show. He's been very kind to me. He's always pleasant to speak to, and he's a great champion. I think he is the benchmark of what you could ask for an NWA World's Heavyweight Champion in 2019. I could see this man stepping into a WWE ring. I could see him stepping into a New Japan ring. I can see him stepping into an AEW ring and not being outmatched or outclassed or anything. He's top of the line. He is the blueprint. He is the national treasure. But with that being said, I kind of noticed some things today. I do research for the show. I honestly do research the show. This isn't just all coming up off the top of my head. In 2018, as NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, part of the Aldis Crusade. Now remember, he won the title on December 9th, which will be actually a week from yesterday. A week from yesterday, which December 9th, 2017, CZW. Nick Aldis finally defeats Tim Storm to launch the Aldis Crusade. Okay? A feel-good moment that went to shit because it was in CZW, and the fans obviously didn't give one crap about the NWA, Tim Storm, or Nick Aldis. But then that match did crown a new champion, and Nick Aldis then went on to start his crusade, but didn't start till January. And that's where he started defending the title all over Britannica, all over the United Kingdom. And then he'd take the title to the United States. It was during this time that he went to China. I went with him. And then he went to Australia. I did not go to Australia. And he had defended the title on 4 continents, all before being a part of the biggest independent pay-per-view of 2018, All In. He had 32 defenses in 2018, successful defenses, and that was in his first reign. His second reign, after defeating Cody at the 70th anniversary show, where it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, he had 9 more successful defenses between 2018 and 2019. And that was matches in Puerto Rico, matches in Canada, again, matches in the UK. He really maximized his opportunities as world champion in 2018. 2019 has been a little bit more lackluster. We're talking about 15 successful title defenses as part of his second reign as NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Now, you might say, well, hey, he's legitimately making that, on average, a defense every 30 days. Yes. But he's only had 1 defense on the NWA Power programming. And before that, he had a defense with that Modus Brewing show. And then it was kind of like a stall pattern for the champion. And I don't know if he's been hurt. I don't know if they just have other plans. But it seems like to me that Aldis' steam has kind of been pulled back this year. Anyone else agree with me? What do you guys say, looking at the comments? For the fans who see this video, Thunder Rosa, Ricky Starks, and a question mark will be in action Sunday for Championship Wrestling from the Ocean View Pavilion, free admission. Absolutely, we talked about that last week, Lamb, but yeah. And again, another lost opportunity. Why not have Aldis out there defend the world title? I digress. Then Ron says, does Marquez still own CZW? That was why Aldis won the title there. I do believe Marquez still owns a stake in CZW. To what degree, I don't know. I think the title match was there because, number one, it was going to be in a bigger venue. And I think they thought that it might carry a little bit more gravity being in that environment. They should have known better. It's deathmatch wrestling for the most part. They don't really give a shit about the NWA. It's not really their bag. I love how Aldis tore the CZ. Yes. Excuse me. Pickle, you were absolutely right. I loved how Aldis talked so much shit about CZW afterwards, too. With every right. That was his crowning achievement. That was him winning the 10 pounds of gold. And even if you're not a fan of the NWA, you have to respect the fact that that lineage, that title, goes back to Ric Flair, Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Luthez, Jack Briscoe, just so many wonderful names in wrestling, and the CZW fans are shitting on it. Jesus Christ, pardon my language, but absolutely, Aldis had every reason to just go to town on CZW, and I hope he never works for CZW again, and I hope every time someone asks him about CZW, he just puts his boot right in their butt, because clearly those fans weren't there. Agreed. He was not on the road much as in 2018. For 2020, if he's still champion, the first title offense will be in Canada on January. He lost some steam, yeah. And I mean, it's cool that they've already got matches lined up for January. There's a very real possibility that our World's Heavyweight Champion makes this defense on the 14th and does maybe 1 or 2 more defenses leading up to the end of the year for the TV tapings. Those are supposed to start back up again on December the 17th, just 3 days after the pay-per-view. So, number one, Lagana is going to be buried in editing and getting this show ready. But hopefully we get some more Nick Aldis world title matches, because, again, you compare the numbers, he had almost 40, he had 42 total defenses in his first and second reign in 2018, and then the second reign in 2019, he's only had 16 with 17 scheduled. Not so good. Okay, Lamb says if James Storm wins the title, he could appear with the title in ICW, a WWE working partner in the UK. Hey man, I mean, you're onto something. I don't have a problem with that. Someone asked me recently who I thought should be the guy to take the belt off of Nick Aldis, and I still say it's... You guys know who that is without me even saying it. I guarantee it. Nick Aldis is great. Nick Aldis is still the measuring stick as far as I'm concerned. But Nick Aldis has been a dominant champion, and I think that it's time to breathe a little bit of new life into that title. Someone like Eli Drake, maybe James Storm. Personally, I'd rather see Drake as world champion, but that's just me. Ron, you like the hat? Yeah, man, I'm a huge Angels fan, and the wife bought me this a few years ago, and I like it because it matches my work uniform. I can wear it, and I don't feel like a weirdo. Let's see. So the other thing we haven't even gotten to yet was this whole mess with the Great Muta. Holy crap! How did we not talk about that? The NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and it's funny because I kind of alluded to this. The NWA World Heavyweight Championship has a rich history in the United States, but it's also been an international title. It's always stood for being a global title, and that title has been defended time and time again all across the globe. We've got Jarrett defending the title in South Korea, like I previously mentioned. We've got Sting defending the title in Ireland. We've got, we've got Nick Aldis defending the title in China. Countless competitors defending their World Heavyweight Championship in Canada. You've got Adam Pearce and this man right here defending the title in Australia. But Japan has been such a hotbed of pro wrestling for so many years, and the NWA and its relationship with Japan has been huge. One thing that I want to point out is besides Kojima winning the World's Heavyweight Championship and defending that in Japan, and besides Dory Funk Jr. taking the title to Japan for wrestling Giant Baba, losing to Baba and winning Baba, and Harley Race taking the title to Japan, there's lots of actual Japanese wrestlers who've won the NWA World's Heavyweight Championships, starting with, of course, Giant Baba, right? Former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. Let's not forget, as previously mentioned, Hashimoto, former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. And we can look back to when the WCW first left the NWA, the New Japan was still connected to the NWA. The International Wrestling Grand Prix recognized the National Wrestling Alliance and vice versa. The Great Muta was a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, and I believe so was Chono, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me on that. What are you guys saying? Okay, let me get back to... Sorry, I got distracted. So now we have an opportunity for the Great Muta to challenge Nick Aldis for that World's Heavyweight Championship. Now, I know, and my boy Stan, I know you're thinking this, it's clickbait. Hell, it might be. But this is probably the best thing to happen to the NWA in the last 2 or 3 weeks, because with all the negative publicity from episode 7, with all the people being churned off from episode 8, this is going to get people to watch. I guarantee it. No matter what happens, if it's just nothing, it's still going to get people to watch. It's still going to get people to talk about the NWA, which is exactly why you bring in a guy like the Great Muta. This isn't 1987 Muta. He's not going to be amazing in the ring. He's not going to be bouncing around. This isn't 1990 Strong Style Muta. This isn't even, King's Road Muta. This is bad knees, taking very few bumps Muta. But I would still pay to see that match, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would too. And, at first I kind of thought, well, there's not a whole lot to it. This is the NWA playing it smart, having the cameras at the right spot, taking the right photos to get everyone all excited, and there'll never be a payoff. But Even Muta just recently tweeted, "Yeah, match is ready. We're going to do it in 2020." So, I mean, God willing, this match might happen in 2020. And for me, I think that's going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to it. And again, I don't care if it's Old Man Muta. I don't care if it's, I can't do the Shining Wizard Muta anymore. I don't care if he doesn't do a moonsault. Just the fact that he's going to be in the ring spitting green mist at Nick Aldis has me jacked up. It should have you jacked up too, because again, imagine if instead of people clamoring for Sting versus The Undertaker for the WWE, what if we got Sting versus Nick Aldis? I know that happened in Impact, whatever, but it wasn't for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. That would get me excited. It's not going to happen, but it would get me excited. What if we had, what if we had Adam Pearce challenge for that NWA World Heavyweight Championship? He's working with the WWE now. He probably won't ever step foot in the ring again, but what if? I like that stuff. I'm not a huge Severn guy anymore. I mean, I still love Dan Severn, what he did for the NWA and who he was as a wrestler, but he is also a lot older and a lot slower, and guy's in his 60s now, but of course we got 60-year-old guys challenging for the tag team title, so maybe that could still happen. I'd like to see this guy, Jax Dane, challenge for the world title. I wouldn't mind seeing Blue Demon Jr. challenge for the world title. So anytime I think you can go back into that rich history and bring back a former champion to challenge for the title, you got to do it. Just going to get people to talk about it. So let's see. What are you guys talking about? I read today that IPW is having their last show soon. Sad. I saw Aldis versus Star there. Pickle, I think I'm starting to know who you are. Maybe. IPW, a friend of the Alliance for many years, Billy Wood, was for a short time the owner of IPW. I think he still might have ownership, but not actual front office management anymore. And Billy Wood was really big on reviving that brand, and it is sad to see it kind of go away. Billy Wood was a huge NWA proponent, wanted to make Marty Scurll the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion back when he was not a household name, and this was long before all the elite stuff, but he would have been fantastic as a World Junior Heavyweight Champion, and Billy Wood would have been really good at making sure the NWA champions were working in the UK as well. Okay. Pickle's pumped about Great Muta. That's awesome. I am too. Both Storm and Drake have history with the NWA, but with Drake was so close against Adam Pearce in 2013, I think Drake would be the perfect choice. If you guys hadn't seen that match, gosh, I don't know if you'll ever see it because I don't know if it's available. You might want to check the United Wrestling Network's YouTube channel, see if you can find Adam Pearce versus Sean Ricker, Eli Drake. Back then, Eli Drake went by Sean Ricker. He had recently separated as a tag team wrestler. He was teaming with Brian Cage's Natural Selection. Great tag team. And Percy Pringle, formerly known as Paul Bearer, was the manager, and they were going to recreate the Pringle dynasty. And they were actually, he was managing those two. And then, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but, in front of the camera, it was just, Ricker didn't want to share the spotlight anymore, so he got rid of Brian Cage, and it was all about him, and they were building towards that World Heavyweight title match. And Pierce and Eli Drake had a great match in the old Glendale studios, and it was a great, it was one of those moments where I got worked. And I get worked all the time, guys. I am a mark for this business. I'm stupid. I thought Damian Wayne was going to win the world title multiple times. I thought the Maestro was going to win the world title multiple times. So I get worked quite a bit. But in that particular night, Pierce versus Eli Drake, you kind of felt like this was a shift change and that something big might be happening. And the title didn't change hands, but it certainly helped solidify Eli Drake's future with the NWA and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Ron says, the hat reminds him of the old school hats I used to order from Ebbets Field Flannel. I'm not sure what that is, but being an Angels fan, you guys, if you're into baseball at all, they've had several different logos. I fell in love with the team when they were the around '86. At the same time, I started watching Jim Crockett Promotions, and those Angels back then had the A with the halo. But as a young man, as a young teenager, I would go to Angels Stadium with the old CA logo before Disney had bought them, and of course before they won the World Series. Fun times. Sorry, baseball stuff. Stan the Man says, I'd rather not see Muta lay down for Aldis. Until Eli wins, all title defenses are predictable. I mean, sure, dude. I'm good with that, too. And I know that sounds crazy because Muta is in an advanced stage, and he's not the same guy. But come on, man. Could you imagine people losing their shit? I would lose my shit. I would blow up. I might not be here because I just blow up. Speaking of not being here, since next week there isn't scheduled to be an NWA Power program, leave a comment. Tell me if you think I should do another show next week. We could just do a Talk NWA show. It doesn't have to be about Power. We can just talk NWA. But let me know, because as of right now, I don't think I'm going to do it. But if you guys want me to, if you just leave me a comment. If enough of you guys say yes, then I'll do it, because this is one of the highlights of my week, interacting with you guys. The title defense in January 2020 in Canada. Brian Cage is also there. Could also lead to a title match between Cage and Aldis in Australia. WSW, if NWA is okay with it. That's funny you bring that up, Lamb, because I was just thinking that. WSW, for you guys that don't know, is a Ring of Honor-esque type wrestling promotion in Australia. But they don't run very often. In fact, they go through long stretches of not running at all. Former world champions for WSW include Daniel Bryan, when he was hunting that NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. I want to say Ricochet was a former champion. Brian Cage is a former world champion. And I was thinking, and I know this sounds a little bonkers because the NWA used to be this alliance of wrestling promotions, but what if the NWA partnered with WSW, right? What if they did an NWA show in Australia? I don't know. Sounds crazy to me, but I don't know. Putting this guy on the card and maybe this guy on the card, who've both been on Australia recently, maybe you can make some magic happen. And personally, I think that would be really good, because the WSW treated their stars like great and put on great matches. And we talk about guys who might be potentially free agents soon, like Marty Scurll, who used to be able to work those WSW shows. A lot of the Young Bucks were there. I don't expect the Young Bucks to be there, but there's a lot of free agent talent out there that can all culminate in one spot, WSW. And why not make it an NWA WSW show? I'm all for that, Lamb. I don't think Dave Lagana watches this, but if he does, I mean, call somebody. Definitely clickbait tonight. It will get eyes on the NWA, though. Yeah, Stan, I mean, you and I talked about it offline. Yes, you're right. It is clickbait. We're all going to go on there hoping to see a match. We're not going to see a match, but we are going to see wrestling, and we are going to see Muta on NWA TV some, 35 years since he last was on an NWA program? I mean, that's pretty cool. Lamb says, does Muta still own Wrestle One in Japan? Could it lead to a Japan title defense? I think so, and yeah, why not? I think it's crazy that people don't want to see that. If you're an NWA wrestling fan and you're like, no, I don't want to see the title in Japan, I don't understand. And it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not saying Japan is some magical place that you have to wrestle there in order to be considered legit, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And in fact, that's a country that still treats wrestling with a lot of respect and dignity. And you bring in a guy like Aldis to face Muta, a legend, a Hall of Famer. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. Pickle says that they like AML. You know, AML looks pretty cool, man. I haven't really watched any of it. But, I mean, that card that they put on, there was some good matches. I would have watched some of those matches. I think AML might be onto something. And Stan says, let's do a show next week. You and me, Stan? Talk to me offline. We'll figure something out. But But shit, look at the time, guys. See, that's how much fun we have here. I didn't know it's been almost an hour since we went on. Holy crap, this is the longest one yet to date. Ron says he'd love to see the NWA women's roster versus the ECW women's roster out of Canada. Yes. The Supergirls. Oh my God, that super. Ron, we could talk about this all day, man. ECCW back in the day was like the it promotion for the NWA. Even though they were north of the border, they were producing some great wrestling. They would bring Carino in as world champion. They'd bring Sabu as a world champion. And not only that, but they had some of these great women wrestlers and Scotty Mack and so much good stuff in ECCW. And absolutely, I 100% agree that yes, everything you just said. Bring in more women wrestling from ECCW. Let them do a joint event in Canada. Who cares? I don't mind the alliance part of the NWA. I don't. Some people have a problem with that. Let the NWA be the NWA. Stand by themselves. No. Work together. It's so much better. We get so much more interesting matches and concepts and different things. Yeah. Yes. But hey, it is 2:55 according to my camera's computer, so we're going to call it a day, guys. Oh man, thank you so much. I was feeling like dog shit, and I was contemplating not even doing the show today. You guys really brought the energy. You brought me up a little bit. You picked me up, man. I love it. Let's all go tune over to the YouTube channel. Let's see what Lagana's got for us. And if you guys like the show, please give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. Make sure you guys are following me on all the socials at TheAllianceBlog. Let's keep this whole NWA positivity going. One of my good friends, Don, said once, they have a universe, but we have a family, guys. Thank you for being a part of my family, and I'll see you at the matches. Goodbye.